You are pressed for time, but you still want to dive into a good read. Well, that's possible, because today I'm going to recommend 11 excellent books to you that you can all read in a single day. From everlasting classics to modern page-turners, these books will leave a lasting impression. Perfect for some weekend reading, or if you're looking to boost those reading goals. Let's make this quick but powerful. Right, let's kick off with one of my favorite books of all times. It is an everlasting classic that will simply leave you devastated. Each of the characters in this book is raw, relatable, flawed and tragic. With just 176 pages, this is James Baldwin's Giovanni's Room. This story will punch you in the gut. And it does so in an ever so descriptive, rich and poetic language. And James Baldwin doesn't pull his punches. Yes, this is a book about the search for identity, of who you are and what society expects of you, but it is also a book about love and the pain that it brings. For me, Giovanni's Room is the hill I am always willing to die on. And just shy of 200 pages, you can easily read this one in one sitting in a day, but it will stay with you for a lifetime. This one is for you if you're looking for excellent characters that you can either hate or love. This one is for you if you're looking for a love story that for once shows the pain that love brings. I would not recommend this one to you. Well, honestly, I will always recommend this one to you. Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. The second book with 116 pages is Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. Now, I have been on a bit of a Claire Keegan journey this year, and it is clear now. After reading this book, Claire Keegan has become an author for me. This book was recommended to me by a lot of you guys, and I will say, you did not disappoint. You understood the assignment. Claire Keegan truly is the queen of the short story, of the novella, and again in this one she proves she is. To write so much in just 116 pages and to do it in such a clean and crisp language is, chef's kiss. And what makes this story so brilliant is that it offers a very tiny window. There is a simple but good man going about his business on a Christmas Eve, and we get offered a very, very narrow viewpoint into his life. And yet it opens an almost nationwide story, a glimpse into the modern history of Ireland and even into something that is possibly a trauma for many people. Again, these are supposed to be spoiler-free reviews, so I'm not going to explain that, but if you've read the book or if you have done your own research, then you'll know what I'm talking about. I finished this one in a single sitting, a few hours, and I'm already willing to read it again. It is simply that good. And this one is for you if you're looking for very good, very honest characters. This one is for you if you love historical fiction that isn't set way back in the past. And this one is definitely for you if you want a story that has a very narrow scope that opens up into something nationwide. I wouldn't pick this one up if you're looking for a story with a lot of action, where a lot of things happen and where there is a lot of plot. There is only so much you can do with 116 pages. Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. And then we have a Dutch author, Hanna Bervoets, and her book We Had to Remove This Post. I read this one in its original Dutch, but it has been translated, and the premises is simple but creative. We follow a woman, our main character, who has become a content moderator for a social media company she can't name, Facebook. And her job is to wade through some of the vilest, most disgusting, most depraved, most kooky comments on the platform. It is her job to decide whether these posts should be allowed to remain on the platform or should be deleted. And in these 144 pages, this book quickly becomes a psychological study. What does this do with someone? If you have to spend your days reading all of the comments that we can easily imagine what they contain, what does it do with you? How does it affect people to read these kind of things day in, day out? Do you just grow a thick skin, or do these posts start to shape your ideas, your beliefs? And yes, I do understand the largest criticism of this book. After reading the synopsis, a lot of people went into reading this book thinking that they would get to read the most vile, the most shocking, the most depraved comments the book was talking about. Well, the book is actually quite meek when it comes to these things. There's hardly any shock value in it, which it does kind of promise on the back of the book. Nevertheless, it is still a very interesting psychological study. It allows you to look into the heads and into the thoughts of these content moderators, and with them, humanity as a whole. This one is for you if you want to read something totally different. This one is for you if you want something short and snappy. And this one is definitely for you if you want to think some more on social media, how we use it and how we behave ourselves. This one is not for you if you're looking for a shocking book. We had to remove this post by Hanna Bervoets. And then we have The Deep by River Solomon. And I will never stop championing this book. It is raw, it is brutal, it is thought-provoking, and I rarely see anyone else on social media talking about this book. And they should, because The Deep absolutely deserves to be talked about. This is a magical realism novella with a very interesting world building. It tells the story of these tribes of aquatic people who have evolved from their ancestors who were pregnant African slaves that were thrown overboard by their slave masters. And their legacy, their history, their memories are so traumatic and so heavy a burden that they simply decided to appoint someone within their culture to do their remembering for them. And Deep, this story is a story of such a rememberer, and it is truly devastating. The story continually shifts on the axis of, on the one side, trying to be who your community wants to be and to fulfill your role, and on the other side, trying to save yourself from being destroyed by it. It is about mental health, it is about trauma, it is about the crushing expectations our society can have. I love this book, and I think everybody should read it. This one is for you if you're interested in culture. This one is for you if you're interested in how society shapes us. And I would recommend this one to you if you can relate to the crushing expectations of the outside world. But this one is one I would advise you to check your trigger warnings. This is not for you if there are certain trigger warnings that will affect you. It is a brutal book, it is a devastating book, and I want you to be safe. So do check those trigger warnings. The Deep by River Solomon. The next one is a classic that doesn't need any introduction. If I tell you this is a story about a group of overworked animals that overthrows their human masters and through idealism tries to build the utopic society, then you know I'm talking about Animal Farm. When Animal Farm was first published, everyone saw it as an attack on Stalinism and the failing of the Russian Revolution. But today, this book is so much more. Today, we read this book as a criticism on government manipulation, on the flock mentality of its people, on all forms of totalitarianism, and on how easy we trade in our freedom. It is only 140 pages long, and it is written in such an easy and accessible language that anyone can read this classic. So if you haven't, do give it a try. This one is for you if you love your books to be a tad political. This one is for you if you wanted to get into classics for a long time now, but never knew where to start. And this one is for you if you want to experience one of the most gripping stories literature has to offer. And honestly, I would not know who not to recommend this one to. It is a great little book with so many layers and so many things to discover that, well, everyone should at least give it a try once. Animal Farm by George Orwell. Then we have another book that probably doesn't need an introduction because this series has been laureled all over the internet for the last few years. It is the longest of our short books today, but it is totally worth it. This is Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. Now this book is not just one story, it is in fact a series of smaller, more personal stories that are all woven together. Stories that are equal part heartwarming and heart-wrenching. And let's be honest, this series has influenced literary fiction as we know it a lot in the last few years. Kawaguchi's language is beautiful, it is poetic, and it speaks to you as a reader. These stories are known to us, they are relatable, and we might even have similar stories ourselves. Now, should you read the entire series? I'm on the fence about this one. The original idea, the premises of this first book is so unique that it does tend to lose some of that uniqueness throughout the series. Yes, we learn new things, we meet new characters, but for me, it never really returned to that feeling of this first book. Now, this book can absolutely be read as a standalone. So even if you're not willing to invest in an entire series, you can still pick it up and give it a go because it is an excellent read in itself. This one is for you if you love your Japanese literary fiction. This one is for you if you're not tired of the label cozy just yet. And this one is for you if you want really personal, relatable and emotional stories. However, if you're looking for a lot of action, a lot of plot, then I would stay away from this one because this book, this series is simply not that. Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. Right, quick question for you before we go back to our list. Which is the shortest book you have read that had the biggest impact? Drop it in the comments below because I'd love to get some good recommendations. And stick around because the last one in this list is a book that I think is a true hidden gem. Some guilty pleasure reading. And since it is Banned Books Week, let's throw in another one. On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Vuong is a letter from a young man to his mother who can't even read English. I mean, think about that sentence. That simple notion is already mind-blowing. This is a book about the past. It is the story of our narrator's life. But it is also the story of his family's history, and especially his mother's. A young Vietnamese woman who has sold herself to American GIs to escape an arranged marriage. But most of all, it is a story about very different worlds. The world of a young man who is clearly looking for his own identity. Culturally, but also sexually. But also the very small world of his mother, a woman who doesn't even speak English and who is almost confined to the nail salon that she works in. Two worlds that are vastly different from one another. And yet, they touch. And while I was reading this book, I could hardly believe that this was fiction. It seemed also real that I started wondering if I wasn't reading someone's autobiography. And language is the real hero here. Not just because it is a book about language, but also because the language becomes pure poetry. At times, this book doesn't even read like prose anymore. It is beautiful, it is brutal, it is honest, and it will refuse to let you go. This one is for you if you love language in all its forms. This one is for you if you're looking for very interesting, layered and complicated characters. This one is for you if you love a family saga. I would stay away from it though if you're looking for a clean and crisp written book with a simple, clear story. Both the story and the language in this one does tend to meander and flow. 265 pages on Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Vuong. Our shortest book for today, just shy of 100 pages, is a children's book. Oh, so many people will tell you. But trust me, if they do so, they have never really read The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. The best description of this book that I ever heard is that this is not a book for children, but for adults who still remember what it is like to be a child. And for me, this is indeed the perfect summary of this story. The thing about The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry is that it is full of symbolism. Symbolism that you will not understand until you have lived a few decades. As adults, we have met our roses, who have affected our lives with their vanity. We have met our foxes and witnessed how they changed our lives. And just like the Little Prince, we can never go back. And this in itself brings a very deep, profound feeling of loneliness, of melancholy. When you read The Little Prince, you'll never look in the same way at your life or the stars again. So, make me a promise. If you have never, ever read The Little Prince before, if you don't know what it is all about, please, pick it up. Do give it a try, because this one is special. Le Petit Prince, The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, 96 pages of pure magic. Then the next one is a bit difficult to explain, but I'll give it a go anyways. Think of the city of Venice. You might have visited it before, you might just have an idea of what it is like. But the thing is, there is not just one Venice. In fact, there are thousands, maybe millions of copies of it. And although we walk the same streets and see the same views and breathe the same air, my version of Venice as a tourist is vastly different than the version of someone who actually lives there. And the stories that I tell as a traveler, as a tourist, are often unbelievable, fantastical. Venice actually lives in my imagination. And now we rewind into time. Marco Polo is meeting with the Khan of the Tartars, and he's telling about his home city, his Venice. And the Khan, well, he listens, he's captivated by these stories, and he forms this image of this fantastical city in his head, a city that might very well not even exist. Maybe it only exists in the head of Marco Polo. Now, when I picked Invisible Cities by Italo Calvino up, I didn't really know what I was going into. I thought I was going to read some literary fiction, historical fiction hybrid, but it isn't really that. In fact, this book somewhat reminds me of Arabian Nights. It is one long conversation between two people that is made up of very different stories and parables and thoughts. This is a bit of a weird one, a lucid dream if you want, and any description that I can give of it doesn't really do it justice. It is something totally different, it is thought-provoking, and it is, in my opinion at last, a bit of a hidden gem. This is a book you don't simply read, but you experience it, and I suggest you go and do just that. This one is one for people who like to read a story in the past but still want to think about our lives today. And this one is for you if you like a good thinking exercise. Stay away from me though if you're looking for a clear story, a lot of action, a lot of plot. This one doesn't really have any of these things. 176 pages of Invisible Cities by Italo Calvino. And then we have 160 pages which make up the first book in the Monk&Robot series. This is a psalm for the wild build. Centuries ago, the robots of Panga became self-aware. They just laid down their tools and walked into the wilderness, never to be seen again. They faded into myth, they became an urban legend, until now. One of them has appeared again and has approached a young tea monk who is on a journey, a quest if you will, with a simple question. What is it that people need? And from here on we go on this heartfelt and wonderful journey, which is all about identity, about purpose and about friendship. This book gives you a very unique world building, but most of all, it gives you a break. A slow story with low stakes, but very important questions. And I hesitate to use the word cozy because this has been overly used by book marketing in the last years, but it does ring true for this one. There is a second book as well, A Prayer for the Crown Shy, which I haven't read just yet, but yeah, this autumn I will happily revisit the friendship between these two wonderful characters. This one is for you. Well, the dedication in the beginning of the book says it all. For anybody who could use a break. Stay away from it though if you just had it with these cozy tales these days. 160 pages, a psalm for the wild build by Becky Chambers. And our last one is 112 pages of non-fiction writing, but it does read like a novel. 84 Charing Cross Road by Helene Hanff is a story of a friendship. A friendship that is solely based on the fact that there are two people who share a love of books. A friendship that spans over several decades, although those people have never actually physically met. And I don't know what it is about books that are made up out of letters, but I always seem to gravitate towards them. No one writes letters like these anymore, and I think that's a shame. It is not hurried and in the moment like email or texts are, because you know it will take a while to arrive. And that's basically what this book is. The correspondence between Helene Hanff, the author herself, and Frank Dole, a bookseller. She's American, he's ever so British, and although they live worlds apart, they do share this passion, this love for books. Their correspondence started not long after the Second World War, and it spanned over several decades in which they become very close friends. It is witty, it is endearing, it is emotional, it is heartfelt, and you almost feel like you're eavesdropping on their conversation. But most of all, it is full of books. Books you might know, books you might love, books you might have never even heard of before. So yeah, this one is for you if you love a good handwritten letter. This one is for you if you want to read about something that is real, that is tangible. And this one is absolutely for you if you do share that love, that passion for books and reading. This one is not for you if you can't stand people ranting about books. But then again, you wouldn't be watching this video now, would you? 84 Charing Cross Road by Helene Hanff, 112 pages of guilty pleasure reading. I hope you found your next quick read in this list. Let me know in the comments which book you're excited to pick up or which one that I missed. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more book recommendations. I've got more coming your way, so do hit that notification bell to never miss a video. Thanks for watching, happy reading, and if you like this video, I think you might like this one as well.